Hi everyone, I'm Tracy J.
I'm Kalina.
And welcome to tonight's Eye of the East Coast.
Okay, upcoming events. First one is Angela Jeffrey's Intro into Shamanism and Shamanic Journey this Saturday, April 5th from 10 to 5 in Eastern Passage. The second one is Little Mysteries this Saturday. This is their 19th birthday sale, or 19th anniversary birthday sale. Everything in the store is on sale. Draw for your discount, 15 to 50% off, 1 day only. Please bring a friend. Sorry, no layaways or holds during the sale. The third event is in Oliver Farms in Tatamagouche with Faye. She'll be offering a workshop with the trees. It will be on Sunday, April 27th. It's $60 for the day. I had a class with Faye. She's really, really good. If you can't find her, just look for her first on Facebook under Oliver Farms in Tatamagouche. If you can't find her, let me know and I'll send you her information. The next class is my class on how guardians speak. It will be this Sunday at my Sappho office. Please text me at 902-222-7278 if you want to book. Okay, so today's guest is Angela Jeffreys. Angela was born in the UK but grew up in Canada. As a child, Angela knew that there was more to life than what could be seen or touched, but had no one to teach her until she was an adult. One day, the teachers started to show in her life, and Angela is a Shamanic Practitioner, Reiki Master, certified Reflexologist, tarot reader, and has written books on natural healing and a dream journal and workshop. Angela teaches workshops on shamanism, body, mind, spirit, health and wellness, offers tarot readings, house clearing services, and also does shamanic healing and intuitive healing. Angela is also the editor of Becoming Psychic magazine.
I finally started to meet people, and I worked with them, and one thing led to another, and then eventually I met my teachers that trained me officially in shamanism and intuitive healing, and it just expanded all from there.
Who were your teachers?
Well, my first shamanic teacher was a friend of mine named Vivian, who I met when I lived in Toronto. She was what I call my unofficial shamanic training. And then locally, I worked with a teacher named Marguerite. She's a university professor and in sociology and all kinds of other things. And she taught shamanism. She trained directly with Sandra Ingerman in New Mexico. And she started teaching a lot of her workshops here. And I was one of the lucky few to be able to do the full extensive training with Marguerite. This was back in 2002 and 3, I believe. So we're going back a few years. And Marguerite also brought in other teachers that I worked in here. Nan Moss and David Corbin, they're big into weather shamanism, so I got to work with them. And I also did a weekend workshop with Robert Moss, who's also a very well-known dream shamanic teacher.
Awesome. For our listeners, what is shamanism?
Shamanism is the original spiritual pathway that our ancestors lived and followed years ago, and we're talking thousands and thousands of years ago. And shamanism is what our ancestors practiced long before religion was even created. And it's just knowing and understanding that we're all connected, that humans are not better than anyone or anything on this planet, that we all have our place. It's respecting nature around us. It's being connected to all the energies around us within the plants and the trees and the animals, even the mountains and the rivers and the oceans. And it's just being respectful and mindful of that. It's also following the signs that nature gives to us when we're looking for help and guidance and insight and understanding. And the signs, the answers are all around us if we're just willing to pay attention to them. And I have a story to explain that if you would like for me to share that.
Definitely.
This is a very long time ago. I found myself in a relationship that I knew was coming to an end. It was a marriage. And one day I decided I needed to go for a walk to figure out what I was going to do once and for all. Do I stay or do I go? And I went to a local park, and as I was walking around, I picked up a crow feather that was basically at my feet. And I didn't really pay much attention to it, but I just kept walking on, twiddling with the crow feather in my fingers, and a little while later I found another crow feather. And so I'm just walking along. What do I do? Do I stay? Do I go? Twiddling with these crow feathers. And again, just not really paying much attention to them. And then all of a sudden I found myself looking at the feathers as if something guided or directed me to say, look, here's your answer. And I was completely amazed to find out that in my left hand, I was holding a left crow wing feather. And in my right hand, I was holding a right wing feather.
Wow.
So the message was very strong and clear. Fly free, fly free. So I did. I made the decision to move on with my life, and I did. And I've never looked back. And, people would say to me, well, you let feathers make, help you decide to choose to leave your marriage? No, I asked for signs. I asked for help, which is the best thing for me to do. But in the end, the choice is up to me. But I worked with the energy that was out there, and was the best thing I could have done.
That's awesome.
So that's part of what shamanism is about. It's also working with the energies of the time. And basically what shamanism is today is just being responsible for our own spiritual growth, our own spiritual development. Whether you follow a shamanic path or not, that doesn't really matter. Just taking responsibility of who you are and becoming it.
Oh, I like that. What are some ways that our listeners can incorporate ways of shamanism into their life today? Like if they want to start exploring it, where would be a good place to start?
Well, the best thing is to try to find out who your power animals are. And generally the best way to do that is through shamanic journeying, but that's a method that you have to be trained in properly, so not everybody can have access to that. So even meditating. Just meditating and asking, who are my power animals? Because who and what your power animal is very key to a lot of the lessons that you have to learn and live in this lifetime.
Right.
So if you can find out who they are and start working with them, it's amazing what you can find out about yourself. And if you work with them, plow through those things and really become into your authentic self.
Well, for our listeners who may not know what a power animal is, what's the power animal's role?
Well, we've all heard of spirit guides, and we all know that we have energies, entities around us that are here to help us, to guide us, to protect us, to teach us. Well, a power animal is the exact same thing as that, except that it's in an animal form. And the animal that is chosen to be your power animal, and your power animal is with you from the moment that you're born to the moment that you die, it's based on what is unique to that animal, as in what are the lessons that you need to learn in this life. So if you need strength, then perhaps it might be an elephant or a lion, that kind of thing. And a lot of people want the glorious, magnificent wolves and eagles and bears, but even a little mighty mouse, a little teeny tiny mouse is just as powerful, because don't forget, it's the mouse that terrifies the great elephant.
That's right. Well, my power animal is the porcupine, and I love the porcupine.
Oh, I love the porcupine. That's a great one to have. A friend of mine used to complain that she only had a raccoon.
Oh.
And then when she realized one day that, I might be offending a raccoon. I better have a chit-chat. And then she learned more about raccoon and became perfect sense. And then she was very happy that raccoon was her power animal.
Oh, that's nice.
And then the relationship changed. And so that was great.
Well, now my understanding too is that other power animals can come in for a short period of time, like just to help us with a situation and then move on. Is there a different role or different meanings for power animals for that time?
Yes, what you're referring to is what we call ally animals, and they come in to help with a specific task. Now, that can be to help us in a certain time period in our life. So if we're going through a divorce or an illness, or even if we're starting a new course, we'll have a new ally animal come in, which brings with us qualities that we would need. So if you're going through a divorce, then you need strength, and you need mental clarity, and you need emotional stability. So you'll have an animal come in to help give you all those things during that time period. Once the divorce is done, then the ally leaves, its job is done. Mm-hmm. If you're starting with the new course, then of course you need an animal that will help you to remember and to learn the course material. Once you finish the course, off it goes. Then we have other ally animals that are with us through our whole life, but we only use them when we're doing that particular work. For example, I have an ally for my soul retrieval work, and I have a different ally for my psychopomp work, and then I have a different ally for healing and a different one for personal healing. And I only work with those allies when I'm doing those particular kinds of work. And that is different from a power animal. A power animal you call upon at any time for your own personal development or for protection, for help, the same as you would a spirit guide.
Where can the listeners go to start learning about the meanings or the roles of different animals? Like, where should they start?
Well, the first thing that we do when we find out what our power animal is we run to the metaphysic books. And that's actually the last thing that you want to do. The first thing you want to do is go to the good old-fashioned encyclopedia. Find out what it is that your power animal does in real life, how it lives its life in the wild, in nature, and what is unique about it. Because that is actually the key, the answer, as to why that animal is your power animal. And then, of course, you can always look up the metaphysical aspects, but I wouldn't put as much emphasis on the metaphysical aspect immediately, and I'll share with you why. When I started on my shamanic path in the early 1990s, I found out that my power animal is a wolf. And if I had stuck with the metaphysical aspects, I would have learned that the wolf is a spiritual teacher. And yes, of course, I'm a spiritual teacher now, but I wasn't a spiritual teacher back 23 years ago. I would have thought that's a bunch of hogwash and walked away from it, and perhaps never have become the spiritual teacher. But instead, I did what I was taught to do. I got the old-fashioned encyclopedia out, and I read about wolves and how they live their life. And what I learned mirrored my life. And it gave me great understanding as to why a lot of things I was going through in my personal life were happening and how to deal with it. And that was when I could start making huge major changes in my life. And that's when I truly started to walk my authentic path. But if I had just read the metaphysical part, I would have lost all of it.
Yes. Well, and also to the ancestors, that's what they would have done. They would have watched the animal.
Exactly, because of course, 40,000 years ago, there was no such thing as metaphysical books and shops and that sort of thing. They observed. They watched the animal. And also, if you learn how to do a shamanic journey, you can communicate directly with your power animal and ask it directly, why are you my power animal? What am I to learn from you? What can you help me with? And how can we do this together? And you can find all of that out by learning how to do a shamanic journey.
When someone starts exploring the shaman path, is there any tools that you feel they should have?
Well, the first and foremost is the wonderful beloved drum, because it's the drum that you would use to do a shamanic journey. And what a shamanic journey is, it's the method that shamans use to travel from ordinary reality, in other words, where we live our life, and travel into the spirit realms, which is where the shaman would communicate with all the animal spirits and the weather spirits and that sort of thing. And that's where the shaman would do all their work, in the spirit realms. So by having a drum and learning properly how to do a shamanic journey, then you too can enter into the spirit realms and communicate with your power animal and your spirit guides, as well as your ally animals.
What about sage or sweetgrass?
Sage and sweetgrass, of course, are very important. They're for cleaning out your energy fields. Sage is used to clean out negative energy from your aura or your space, not just your physical body, but also your physical space where you live, especially if you have a spiritual room and you want to do spiritual work. And sweetgrass is used to bring positive energy into the place. And depending on where in the world you live, depending on what materials you use, because of course sage is indigenous to North America. In different parts of the world they would have other plants. Buddhists used juniper, and juniper was used to clear out negative energy the same. And you can also just use energy. The Celts used more energy than plants to clear out negative energy. And that is very important in your spiritual hygiene, shall we say, to keep your energy field clear of negative energy, whether it be your own thoughts throughout the day or energy from people that you deal with throughout the day. It gives you a nice, fresh, clear starting point to work with. The same as you start your day with a shower. Well, you don't start any spiritual work without having your energetic shower first.
Exactly. That's a good point. For our listeners, what's a good way to use it apart from the sage and sweetgrass, just to clear the energy? Like when you said thoughts, like what would be an example?
Well, if you have a bad day at work,
Mm-hmm.
say you have to deal with a customer or client who just was severely cranky and it puts you in a very bad mood, well, you don't want to come home and start doing your spiritual work in a cranky mood. So you clear all that out, and then you come back to yourself, and then you're in a much happier, better space to be able to go communicate with your power animals and spirit guides, or just to go on a journey and do some exploring, whatever it is that you want to do.
Excellent. I know we're running out of time here because I want to talk about your magazine. What do you want to tell the listeners about your magazine and your role?
Absolutely. Becoming Psychic Magazine, we are actually going to be celebrating our first anniversary in April, believe it or not.
That's exciting.
It's an extension of the Becoming Psychic Limited business. It started out as a radio show by Sam AP Psychic, who lives in Folkestone in the UK. She started her radio show about 2 years before the magazine, thereabouts. And one day she just had the idea pop into her head from her guides that, you know what, let's put together a magazine. So she did. She put it out there. She got a whole bunch of people assembled to submit articles on a monthly basis. And I had heard about it myself probably as the first or second issue was coming out. All of a sudden I started to see Becoming Psychic everywhere. And the energy of that just really caught my attention. So I approached them to submit an article, which I did. I started writing as of August. And then in September, I became the deputy editor. And then by October, I became the editor. So it's no wonder I felt the call to approach this magazine. And it's been an absolute blast. Becoming Psychic Magazine is not about just becoming psychic. It's about all spiritual paths.
Mm-hmm.
And we have writers to talk about angels and shamanism, and we have someone who writes articles on witchcraft, on the positive side of it. We also have someone who talks about the energy of love. Mm-hmm. So it incorporates all kinds of different topics and subjects. And then we also have health aspects. We have articles on herbs and aromatherapy. And then we also have a writer on the Akashic Records. So we have a lot of variety in there and something for everybody. Crystals and the energy of auras and color. So it's a very varied magazine, something for everybody. And we're getting so many wonderful comments about how much people are loving the magazine. They're actually learning from the articles.
That's awesome.
And that's important because there's been a lot of magazines that I picked up in the past where it introduces you to a subject, but then the article is done and you're left hanging. You want to learn more, but it ends up being just a big, huge glorified advertisement, which, of course, is important too, to get businesses well known out there. But we made sure that our articles, you actually learn something from them. You have a place to start from. And then if you wish to learn more, then, of course, contact the writer. All our writers are healers and teachers and readers, so we come from a place of authenticity. We know what we're talking about. We practice this each day in our own lives and our businesses. So I certainly encourage anybody who's drawn to a particular writer to get in touch with them and learn more from them.
Where can they find the Becoming Magazine? Psychic Magazine.
Becoming Psychic is actually free, available online, and the website to find it is www.becomingpsychicmagazine.com.
And if any of the listeners want to contact you about your work, because you have a book too, we should mention that.
Yes, I've written a couple of ebooks. One is Crystals Essentially, which is a guide to making and using crystal essences. And I also have another one called Natural You, which is using all natural skincare products, getting away from using chemicals. Mm-hmm. And if you wish to send me an article or share a story for the magazine too, because we have a section called Your Stories where we do encourage people to send in their own story of healing or inspiration or insight or even paranormal activity. We welcome it all. Certainly, by all means, you can email me at angelabecomingpsychic@gmail.com.
Awesome. And for if someone wants to contact you about your shaman work, how would they go? Same way?
They can write me there, or my own business email address is bluecrowinspirations@gmail.com.
Okay.
And I do offer a online or more of a e-course introduction to shamanism and shamanic journeying. So if you wish to learn how to journey and discover your power animal, you don't have to be just local to me. You can be anywhere in the world. It's all done by email, and I have a drumming track, information tracks, and written material that I send to you by email. And we work together. It's a mentored course. We work together.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And also, too, you had a course recently with dream work. Is there any other courses coming up?
Actually, I do have locally my introduction to shamanism and shamanic journeying coming up on April 5th here in Eastern Passage in Nova Scotia. So you can certainly write to me at bluecrowinspirations@gmail.com for information on that. There's also lots of information on my Facebook page, which is Angela Jeffries Teacher Healer. You can just search that and you'll find me. And that's all that I have coming up for now, but in May there'll be lots more, so stay tuned.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Angela, for coming on Eye of the East Coast. We really appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll get to talk again.
Definitely.
The energy may be a little bit more louder than normal, and I'm assuming that has to do with the new moon. The new moon was in Aries on Sunday. So what this means is that there's a new chapter or new energy beginning with your psychic abilities. Taurus, they're focusing on music. Okay, so they're focusing on your clairaudio, and clairaudio means clear hearing or the ability to hear the guardians. So keep an eye on how music is being presented to you, and especially if you have music stuck in your head, this is probably the guardian showing themselves. Geminis, they're focusing on be still, let things settle. They're making me feel that there is I don't want to say friendship, but it's a colleague that you may need to put some gentle boundaries around, just because they're showing that this person may not be hearing you right now, so they're just saying it's okay to put some boundaries. Cancer, they're focusing on keeping your focus. They're saying that this is a time to work hard, just kind of focus and get things done, like get your to-do list done this week if you can, because I think the next couple weeks is going to be a little bit more busier. Leos, this is an energy where they're asking you guys to clear energy, and they're they're asking you to see the other person's perspective, because there's something here that you may not be realizing something, and that will help with the clearing or the energy. Virgos are asking you to focus on studying right now, because they're showing that, okay, the visual that they're showing is like you're going to an older, they're looking like a bookstore. They want you going into an older bookstore, because there's something here that there's a book or connection there that can help you with the next chapter. Libras, this is a time to write. They're focusing on your writing, and they're focusing on getting organized and writing out your goals. Scorpio, they're focusing on more positive energy this week, because they're making me feel that you broke through something, and there's something where laughter is going to come more easier. They're also focusing on your dreams. There's a little bit more dream work than normal. Sagittarius, they're focusing on your strength. They're making me feel that your strength, They're making me feel your spiritual strength, because there's something here that you're reconnecting with your higher self. They're asking you to keep an eye on your impulses or your intuition, because they're making me feel this will be right. Capricorn, they're focusing on a connection with a gentleman who his aura is kind of like I want to say like a cowboy kind of, just because I think he's very earthy, he's very down to earth. There's just something here where I kind of feel like you're going to have a role sort of as a teacher to him, where you're just kind of getting him to say, no, this is not who you are, this is who you are. And they're just saying to trust that. Aquarius, really good energy coming your way. Okay, so Aquarius, they're focusing on your awakening a bit more, and the burden that was put on you before is now being released. There's an energy here where you're going to see your path a bit more clear than before. Pisces, they're focusing on removing energy that should not be there. This is a really, really good time to maybe look into acupuncture, Reiki, massage. I think they said this last week too. There's just something here where they're taking out a lot of energy still. And it's also too an energy where it's important to know it's okay to put yourself first. Thank you so much for joining us this week on Eye of the East Coast. We're on Twitter at Eye of the East Coast, and we're on Facebook, Eye of the East Coast. All right, thank you everyone. Talk to you next week.